Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Dana Villa from Chicago, USA. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis will canonize 2 Italians on October 9th, Blessed Giovanni Battista Scalabrini and Blessed Artemide Zatti. Blessed Scalabrini, who was born in 1839, is the founder of the Missionaries of St. Charles Borromeo, also known as Scalabrinians, and the Missionary Sisters of St. Charles. Both congregations were formed to serve the European migrants of North and South America in the 19th century. Venerable Scalabrini was beatified by Pope St. John Paul II in 1997 after waiving the customary criteria of a miracle attributed to his intercession. It was in April that Pope Francis approved the decree acknowledging Blessed Zatti's intercession that led to the recovery of a Filipino who suffered a stroke and aneurysm. Born in 1880, Blessed Zatti joined the Salesians at the age of 19. But ill health forced him to stop his priestly duties, and he went on to serve as a nurse and pharmacist. In 1897, he emigrated to Argentina, where he was known for his faith and piety. The canonization Mass will be celebrated at St. Peter's Square by the Holy Father and is expected to be attended by thousands of faithful, bishops, priests, and nuns. Regardless of repeated calls for peace by Pope Francis, there is currently no indication that the war in Ukraine will end anytime soon. Russia has declared that it would recapture any annexation zones that have been returned to Ukrainian control. The declaration comes as Ukraine continues its counteroffensive, forcing thousands of Russian troops to flee. Announcing the Russian motive, spokesperson Dmitry Peskov warned that Moscow would retake control of the towns that Ukraine had reclaimed. Since Tuesday, 6 villages in Luhansk, which were previously under Russian control, have been recaptured by Ukrainian forces. Following this, President Vladimir Putin ordered his troops to take over Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia. In the meantime, the European Union approved its 8th set of sanctions against Russia, including more trade curbs. Archbishop Peter Comensoli of Melbourne, Australia, has decried the circumstances under which a practicing Christian was forced to relinquish his position as chief executive of a football club. The prelate said it was troubling and bizarre that Andrew Thorburn was forced to leave Essendon because of his faith. He was forced to leave one day after his appointment as he was told to choose between his job at the club and his volunteer post as chair of City on the Hill Anglican Church. Club President David Barham gave Thorburn the ultimatum after a newspaper published excerpts from an old sermon given by a City on the Hill pastor regarding abortion and homosexuality. The sermon contained traditional Christian positions on human life and marriage and sexuality. Thorburn said he should be judged by his behavior and not his faith. A Spanish religious freedom observatory has decried a survey report stating that in 2021, the COVID pandemic was used as a weapon against religious freedom. The Observatory for Religious Freedom and Conscience, or OLRC of Spain, said in its report that there were 195 documented cases of attacks against religious freedom, 45 less than 2020. Comparing data from 2021 with figures from 2019, the observatory noted that there was an increase of more than 11% in such attacks. Out of a total of 195 documented cases, 146 incidents were reported against Christians belonging to various denominations. There were 12 attacks against Muslims and 7 against Jews. Here in the U.S., Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma signed a bill on Tuesday, October 4th, that stops funding to block gender transition services to minors at Oklahoma Children's Hospital at OU Health. As per State Bill 31010, funds to carry out gender transition services for minors, including surgeries and hormone therapies, will be blocked. This bill would come into effect as it has been signed by the governor. Stitt stated that with the new bill, they were intending to prevent children from undergoing gender transition surgeries and therapies. He also added that it is inappropriate to invest the money from the taxpayers in, quote, condoning, promoting, or performing these types of controversial procedures on healthy children, end quote. The newly signed bill will provide almost $40 million in American Rescue Plan funding for children behavioral health care and $20 million for cancer patients who have been affected by the pandemic. It also provides $44 million for the electronic health record systems and over $5 million for mobile dental units. A judge in the U.S. District Court of Southern Indiana has ruled that a Catholic high school and the Archdiocese have a ministerial exemption to choose or dismiss guidance counselors in consideration of their attachment to the Catholic faith. This was with regard to the Roncalli High School, which was taken to court after it dismissed a counselor for entering into a same-sex marriage. The school in 2018 found that the former director of guidance, Shelley Fitzgerald, was in a same-sex marriage contrary to her contract and church teaching. When her contract was not renewed, she filed a case against the high school in October 2019. She accused the school of discriminating against a staff with a service of 15 years. In Iran, President Ibrahim Raisi is trying to dispel public fury against the government as protests over the custodial death of Mahsa Amini continues. On Tuesday, October 4th, the president appealed for national unity, acknowledging that the Islamic Republic had weaknesses and shortcomings. He said that the unrest, which began last month, was a plot by Iran's enemies. President Raisi said protesters are a dangerous threat, and he blamed USA and Israel for fomenting the protests. Videos have surfaced on social media showing young protesters, mostly women, boldly demonstrating despite violent response from the police. Rights groups said that Iranian security officers or forces dispersed demonstrations with tear gas, metal pellets, and even live fire in some cases. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini was detained by morality police for improperly wearing the hijab last month. She died in custody, apparently from torture, sparking a wave of protests. In Burkina Faso, the Archbishop of Ouagadougou has sought prayers as the best way of the crisis in the West African country. It was Cardinal Philippe Ouagadougou who exhorted believers to pray as the nation is battling insecurity and political chaos. The top prelate of the country said that their response to Kalashnikov rifles is prayer, adding that everyone must intensify their prayer in October for peace in the country as well as the world. He made this appeal in a statement after Captain Ibrahim Traoré came to power in a coup after toppling Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba. The cardinal said that the country faced, quote, murderous terrorism, end quote, that left in its wake bereaved families with many men, women, and children being direct or collateral victims of this unjust violence. He also called for rosaries, Eucharistic adoration, and novenas. The Italian town of Assisi is all set to commemorate the second anniversary of the beatification of Carlo Acutis. The sanctuary of the Spoliation Foundation of St. Maria Maggiore Church, where the young blessed was laid to rest, has mustered various programs to celebrate the event from October 8 through October 12. On October 8, Carlo's mother, Antonia Salzano, will release the book My Son's Secret, based on the life of the millennial saint. On the same day, an exceptional Eucharistic adoration named My Highway to Heaven will be conducted. Those words were taken from the life of the young blessed. An international rosary is scheduled for October 9th. On the day of the beatification, which falls on October 10th, the Carlo Acutis Canteen will be open to the poor. The day's celebrations will also include the rosary, followed by Eucharistic adoration and Vespers. On October 12, there will be Holy Mass and a musical concert. There appears to be a glimmer of hope in Colombia as delegates of the government and the National Liberation Army, or the ELN, the largest militant organization, signed an agreement to resume peace talks. The signing ceremony took place at the Casa Cultural Aquiles Nazoa in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, on Tuesday, October 4th. Peace talks between the rebels and the government had been suspended since 2018. A start date for discussions would be announced after the first week of November in a joint statement from both parties. The statement also added that Norway, Venezuela, and Cuba would be, quote, guarantor states in the talks. They also said that the participation of civil society groups would be essential for the peace talks to succeed. ELN Commander Antonio Garcia recommended that different stages of negotiations could be held in Norway, Venezuela, and Cuba. Caritas Internationalis warns of famine threat in Somalia. Caritas Internationalis, the outfit of the Catholic Church, has reported that action needs to be urgently taken as the African nation of Somalia could face widespread famine. The relief agency said in its report that nearly 7.8 million people in Horn of African nation had been affected by the worst drought experienced in over 40 years. Over 1.1 million people are displaced, and by the end of the year, approximately 6.7 million people across Somalia are expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity. Caritas said that action must be taken now to stop the nation from falling into widespread famine. It also described the situation as a global crisis requiring immediate attention. The outfit added that the international community cannot afford to turn a blind eye to this crisis. Caritas Internationalis also said that the global community must be engaged to make a difference in this region. In one of the deadliest shooting incidents in the history of Thailand, a former police officer killed at least 30 people, including 23 children, earlier today, October 6th. Armed with a gun and a knife, the assailant, identified by police as Panya Kamrab, stormed a preschool in Nong Bu Lampu province in the northeastern part of the Asian nation. After the carnage, the assailant killed his family before taking his own life. Kamrab was a police lieutenant colonel who was dismissed from the force last year for drug abuse. According to the police, he had attended a court hearing on a drug charge before going on a shooting and stabbing spree. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow. In the meantime, you can visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.